Hi, welcome to CinemaSpection. I'm Tim.
I'm Corinne.
Oh, yeah, I'm Bob. I'm here too.
And before we start the show, I just want to make a personal note that since our last recording, Corinne and I have been married. We want to thank everyone for their warm wishes, and I can think of no better way to illustrate how much I love, honor, and cherish my partner, not only in podcasting, but life itself, than to make her sit down and watch another damn James Bond movie. That's right, we're watching the third 007 film and arguably one of the most popular, Goldfinger.
Yes.
I hate you.
The romance is over, ladies and gentlemen.
The birth and death of our marriage.
Cause of divorce? James Bond. Actually, he's probably been the cause of many divorces.
I was going to say, that's probably on a lot of paper between like 64 and 73 or something.
And a lot of birth certificates.
Stop. Look. He's gunning for trouble. 007. It spells Bond. He's the idol of every woman.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
The envy of every man. The nemesis of the treacherous Mr. Goldfinger. International cheat. International menace. The man with a finger in every pie. His goal? Fort Knox, the world's biggest bank. His enemy? James Bond. The hotter the danger, the cooler he takes it.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Taking a break from his battle against Spectre, British secret agent James Bond is on a new assignment to investigate reputed gold smuggler Auric Goldfinger. Initially interested in how the gold-obsessed arch-criminal is moving his bullion from nation to nation, 007 discovers that Goldfinger is planning a mysterious scheme known as Operation Grand Slam. Bond comes up against the razor hat-tossing thug Oddjob and beautiful but ruthless pilot Pussy Galore as he tries to melt down Goldfinger's bold plan to attack the American gold supply at Fort Knox. As usual, we'll be discussing Goldfinger details, so if you haven't seen the movie and wish to remain unspoiled, we recommend watching the film before listening to the rest of this episode. Goldfinger was released by United Artists on September 18, 1964 in the United Kingdom and December 22, 1964 in the U.S. It was shot on a budget of $3 million and made $23 million in the box office in the U.S. and $46 million foreign in its initial run. Following reissues, including a double feature with Dr. No 2 years later, the movie's all-time gross stands at $51 million U.S. and $70 million foreign for a total of $124 million. And of course, the film is based on the novel by Ian Fleming. So, what's everybody's first experiences with Goldfinger?
This was my first experience.
Really? You never seen it?
Nope.
What did you think, dare I ask?
I never want to see it again.
Bob?
Yeah, I love this movie, but I think I kind of, what's the golden age of James Bond movies is like 12.
Yeah.
So, I think I saw these at exactly the right point, where it's like, oh, okay, this is exactly as cartoony as what I enjoy as a child, but there's a whole lot of stuff in here that'll be very important to my adolescence in a couple of years. So, I probably have the same terminal mental scarring as every other young man of my generation who, saw James Bond and said, okay, that's adult manhood. Good, I'll file this away for later when I want to be indicted.
For me, this is one of those ones, I remember they used to have like the James Bond video collection, the ad running on TV, and this is always the one they put a spotlight on. So a lot of the things I remember about James Bond before I knew what James Bond was like were from this movie. The big laser scene, Oddjob, the car, obviously, the Aston Martin, things like that.
So much of that has been spoofed elsewhere.
Yeah.
Visually referenced in cartoons and other movies.
This is a particular one for people borrowing from, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think these first three Bond movies are the ones that really set up the formula, and this puts in the last details.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this is the first time that Bond goes up against somebody who's not connected with Spectre. It's the only time in the Connery series that he'll do that. Everybody else is either Blofeld or one of Blofeld's minions. First time we see a pre-title sequence that's not really connected with the story at all. So this weird little mini-movie that almost like if you've never seen Bond before, here you get to know what he's like, and now we can jump into the main story. The first of the really classic James Bond title songs, which, say what you will about the film, I love this song. This is a great song. Written by John Barry, with lyrics by Anthony Newley and Leslie Bricusse, the guys who won an Oscar for their songs for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Shirley Bassey just sings the hell out of this.
Goldfinger. He's the man with the Midas touch. A spider's touch.
And just like Tom Jones with Thunderball, she actually nearly passed out singing that final note. Supposedly the producer, Harry Saltzman, hated the song, but they didn't have time to record another one, so it had to stay in. And I just can't imagine the movie without it. I mean, this really started the Bond song tradition. This is, of course, the first time we see the tricked-out Aston Martin DB5. Beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
car. The trope, which we saw a little bit in From Russia with Love, but it's really heavy here, of here are all the gadgets that you're going to be using, Bond, and here's how they work. So you're spending the rest of the movie waiting, okay, when's he going to use this one? How's he going to use this one?
And especially don't touch this red button.
This is the first of the really interesting henchman characters with Oddjob, who is one of the better parts of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
The ridiculous and overcomplicated death trap when somebody could just take a gun, shoot Bond in the head, be done with him. And Bond facing the villain in sort of a civilized setting, usually playing some kind of game. In this case, of course, the giant golf match.
Yeah.
Now, for the bad stuff, and let me get out this huge list. Let's check out the sexism. Pretty
a couple
big.
pages.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it doesn't even matter because you could list off and I could find more for you.
I mean, from the beginning with the whole man talk dink and spanks her and gets her out of the way, the fact that every woman Bond encounters who's connected with Goldfinger, he has to imply that they're sleeping with him.
He's checking it out. He wants to make sure that they haven't been sullied by him, which is another big problem I have. Like, it's a multi-layered problem because he's not only implying that Goldfinger, being, a heftier guy, is too gross. So if any of these women have had sex with him, hands off, he's too gross. These women have been tainted by him.
Why do you do it?
He pays me.
Is that all he pays you for?
And for being seen with him.
Just seen?
Just seen.
I'm so glad.
And then on top of it, he's implying that they're having sex with Goldfinger, or because they're not, they want to have sex with him. So it's just terrible any way you look at it.
That's the same on Goldfinger's side. That creepy scene where he's talking to Pussy Galore about what you're going to do after this. And if you just listen to the dialogue, it seems like they're being professional, but you see him like pawing her that whole scene. Ugh.
And that's something I wrote down and found very interesting is that Goldfinger, and I hate to say this, but Goldfinger is so much more respectful of the women in this film. Like, he's closer to what we'd prefer a guy to do. I mean, he just puts his hand on hers, and when she rejects him by picking up the glass, he doesn't pursue it. He's done. He's tried. He hired a woman who he probably could have hired to sleep with, but just to be seen with her. He also shows that women can be something beyond an object to look at or an object to have sex with. He has pilots. He uses one as a spy. They're employed and they're skillful.
Now we get to the racism side. And ironically, the movie actually isn't as bad as the book that it comes from. It's not great, but the book was 10 times worse. Here you have Chinese and a Korean as the go-to bad guys, which makes sense given the Cold War setting, North Korea and China both being part of the communist powers. But in the book, there are scenes like Goldfinger has this cat, and he's like, I'm tired of this cat. Here, Oddjob, you may have it for dinner. And Oddjob has the smile like, oh, goody. Or Goldfinger talking about Koreans describing them as the cruelest, most ruthless people in the world. And then you'd go on the other side, and Bond's thoughts on Koreans are, hang on, let me actually read this directly from the original book. Bond intended to stay alive on his own terms. Those terms included putting Oddjob or any other Korean firmly in place, which in Bond's estimation was lower than apes in the mammalian hierarchy. And this is our good guy.
Wow.
I mean, it's awful. And the fact that that's taken out from this movie at the very least. Yes, they're the bad guys, but at least we don't have that kind of attitude all over the place.
But we also have a pretty minor character in Solo who refers to the man who takes his suitcase as boy. That's just not good in any context.
I try to balance that with the fact that at least he's supposed to be a mobster and he's a bad guy. So, okay, the bad guy's doing it. It's a little easier to take, but it's still kind of rough.
Plus, we have very, very few. I mean, I know we have a majority of Asian characters. They're all on the quote-unquote bad side. Yeah. But we have very, very few African Americans, and there's one key scene outside of Goldfinger's estate. And in the very background on the upper left-hand corner, you can see two black men painting a fence white. And that broke my brain.
Yeah. The bigger one is the homophobia, where it's a big point that Tilly Masterson and Pussy Galore are both lesbians. And the way it's portrayed in the book is just awful. Oh, hang on. Here's another great quote. Bond liked the look of her. He felt the sexual challenge all beautiful lesbians have for men. That, again, of course, a lesbian is just a challenge for him to overcome, and that's it.
Which, in this film, he does. He manages to overcome her lesbianism, and now she's just so enthralled by him and his magic dick that she turns good. So I actually wanted to talk a lot about the homophobia and the lesbian subtext in the film, but text in the book, and I haven't read the book, so I'm just going to talk about the film. They make it very, very clear that these women want nothing to do with Goldfinger. They want nothing to do with Bond. Pussy Galore says she's immune to the charm. She says she's not interested. She fights him off before he assaults her. Plus, there's the visual and the understanding of phallic objects. She flies a plane, phallic object. She points guns at him, phallic object. And then he strips her of these things one by one. He is emasculating her. And that's problematic because that just implies that lesbians are men. So it's not good. We go into this movie and Bond is being emasculated. He's being subverted by a woman who's trying to shoot Goldfinger, and he has to emasculate her, taking away her gun, telling her she's a bad shot, telling her what to do, and that in the end gets her killed. If she had been relying on her own will, chances are she would not be dead by the beginning of that film.
Well, especially specifically because Bond grabbing her gun sets off the alarm.
Right.
She was doing okay.
Exactly. Even if she wasn't aiming quite well, she wasn't triggering any alarms. So James Bond's goal in this movie, as I see it, is to emasculate women and to grab any type of phallic object and make himself a lot bigger. Like, I'm a man. I'm a strong alpha man. I'm going to take away any kind of power that you as a female or a lesser man have.
And it bothers me because with Pussy, there's a perfect chance to have her turn come in a different way. And I thought they should have done this. The scene where he's talking about the poison, how it's not actually a sedative, but is actually fatal. If she heard that and suddenly the wheels are turning, she realizes what she thought was just a heist where no one was going to get hurt is going to kill all these people. That would have been a perfect excuse for her to turn. But no, it's got to be their roll in the hay. Another
point, and he doesn't understand that she's a lesbian. He is not reading those signals at all. And after Goldfinger tells Pussy Galore to get a little better dressed up, get ready to seduce, in a way, James Bond, she tells Bond that, you know, she's making herself vulnerable. She actually says the words. And it should be enough of a clue because she's saying these words and she's not acting on them. So this is all a pretense.
The fact they don't directly say that she's a lesbian, I almost feel like it gives you a little bit of room to think that, okay, she's just not into his thing.
Oh, no, it read purely as she's a lesbian to me. In fact, her name is Pussy Galore. Come on. Yeah. You know, that's what she's into. You know?
I took that more as, you know, it's what she represents to Bond, because everything, of course, is what it means to Bond in these movies.
Well, that's seeing it through his lens, but if you look at it through her lens and the lens of the women she's trained, she's all about the pussy.
Yeah. And there's no way Bond doesn't know. I mean, he comes off really dumb in the movies if you break it right down, but there's no way he's not picking this up. He just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Or gives too much of a shit, one way or the other. Goldfinger absolutely must know, by the way, so he's actually very inappropriately handsy, all things considered.
I think it's one of those things of being a rich guy. He kind of expects he gets what he wants no matter what anybody else says about it.
But he does not grab her by the pussy.
I think we'd need to see a little bit more of how he behaves with some of the other women off screen. I mean, we
don't. And, you know, we're concerned with what happens on screen. And the only time Goldfinger reaches out and touches somebody uninvited is the hand on hand. And that versus, you know, Bond, who really beats her up and then rapes her.
No, I agree, but just watching that scene, when he puts his hand on her hand,
it's creepy.
How uncomfortable she is.
But she very gracefully, and this is what women do. We have a dance we have to play with, you guys. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it comes down to, how do I get out of this situation without offending and therefore putting my physical self in danger? She grabbed her drink and she was very graceful about it. And that's how you get around a physically awkward situation. And he accepted that. You know he knows. He knows he's been rejected. He accepted it.
See, that to me still says he's a creep. He's just a creep who's better at trying to maintain this facade of being a civilized individual out in public.
It's also the only scene where Goldfinger is kind of oddly asexual for a Bond villain.
Yeah. There's a lot more in the book about some of his weird sexual hang-ups that doesn't
Right.
make it into the movie, although I feel like a lot of those are still implied, as I'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
But because, I mean, he has this big fetish about gold, and it keeps coming up in how he kills people.
Yeah.
And there's something very distinctly sexual about it.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about how gold is a soft metal? How there might be some issues.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That could be it. But I mean, like, how he kills Jill Masterson, takes all of her clothes off, has her painted gold. There's a very creepy sex element to that.
It's fetishistic, definitely.
And even how he's going to kill Bond. I mean, it's not just enough he's going to have a laser slice up his crotch, but he has him do it on a piece of gold.
Oh, but see, this is also an emasculating moment. He's not just going to be split in half. The first thing to go is his junk. You know, so this is a lot of guys trying to prove that they have a bigger dick.
It also goes to this whole thing that recurs throughout the series of the deviant sexuality always being on the villain side.
Yes.
That Bond is always about just good old-fashioned, normal man and woman kind of sex. And anyone who's into something a little bit more interesting, they must be evil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in this series. I think in the book, it's actually suggested that Goldfinger hires prostitutes and has them painted gold before he has sex with them.
Huh.
So let's get to James Bond again, played by Sean Connery. And once again, we see what a shitty agent Bond is. Beginning of the movie, he has one assignment, watch Goldfinger. He screws it up and gets somebody killed as a result of it. God, how's this guy still in the service? And all right, here we come to, I mentioned there's one Bond moment that really offends me, the way
That's
fetch my
right.
shoes. For me, it's
My dear girl, there are some things that just aren't done. Such as drinking Dom Perignon 53 above a temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's as bad as listening to the Beatles without earmuffs.
what the fuck, Bond? It's such a sign of what an out-of-touch guy that he is, that this young rock group, it's like, oh, they're loud, noisy, they're terrible. It's like, oh, fuck you.
Interesting. I actually read that as quite the opposite. It was like, you know, you have your headphones on, and then if you put earmuffs over it, you're muffling the outside sound. So I took that the exact opposite way.
No, I think it was
I
earmuffs as
think
in
you're
it's too
right,
noisy.
but I took it the wrong way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would not be an unconventional opinion for a man of Bond's age and station to have at that point. I mean, at that point, the Beatles were still considered basically a chick band.
Yeah, and he's the establishment.
Yeah.
They were certainly not that. But yeah, there's a lot of this movie where it seems like Bond is just kind of, like you said, emasculated, not really. He spends a lot of it as a hostage, just kind of sitting there going, all right, well, here I am. Doo-doo-doo. And it makes it feel like he's a lot more of a passive character than he is. When it comes to the finale, when it comes to shutting off the atomic bomb, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just kind of like, this one? Maybe this one. Somebody else has to come up and just literally switch it off.
He's a very Jack Burton hero in this one. You know, he thinks he's the hero, but someone else is going to come in and actually save the day.
I mean, when it comes to it, all right, he kills Odd Job, he kills Goldfinger, but it's Pussy who actually gets the word out to the CIA and saves all those people.
Yeah.
And it's this random bomb expert who shows up and shuts it off that saves everybody.
But the thing is, it's also that the stereotype of men not asking for directions comes into play when Bond won't ask for help.
Well, I almost feel like part of it is Bond being his own worst enemy and that he works alone, and all these CIA guys like, oh, he's got it under control. Cut to him in his cell like, oh, a prisoner. But they're all assuming, nah, he has the situation in hand, it's fine, we don't have to bug him.
But he's also not reaching out. Like, he would have accepted the help if it happened, but reaching out would have just,
Well, he tries
it's
with
not
the little...
what real men do.
He tries with the little bug, and then it just doesn't work out because he puts it in the mobster's pocket and it gets squashed, and that's the end of it. So he does try.
Well, it's also a very British officers class kind of approach to whatever the definition of 007's job is at this point. You know, he has his role to play, which is, you know, to meet with guys and do things, and then eventually there will be the guys who come by with the machine guns and do the grunt work and mop up, you know, once he's done with all the very important things.
Yeah, and he shoots one or two key people,
Right.
and that's kind of the end of it.
This is sort of the final end of these being spy movies at this point. Because, like, for the first two, they're legit spy movies. He's spying, he's doing infiltration, and this is, like, the point where it kind of begins to flip all the way over to, now, we're calling him a spy, but he really is a whole other kind of job that only exists in the movies called James Bond. Like, his job is to be James Bond from this point on.
He kind of does some infiltration stuff on Honor Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
And you only live twice, but at least at that point, it's in both cases, it's, oh no, we know you're James Bond.
He
We know it's
becomes
you.
more special ops.
Yeah. Opposite him is Gert Frobe as Auric Goldfinger. God, just saying that name, it's so silly.
Goldfinger.
It's like, you will love gold when you grow up. It's right up there with the comic book. I mean, and this is essentially getting into comic book territory at this point, these movies.
Yeah.
But played by Gert Frobe, he also appeared in The Ballad of Berlin, The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabusa, The Longest Day, where he plays that cowardly German soldier on the bike, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, and as Baron Bombburst in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, also from an Ian Fleming story. He actually did try to learn the role phonetically, but his recitation was just too slow, so they just had him speak real fast and dubbed it over later. At least he's in good company, since, I mean, so many of the actresses in these movies are dubbed over as well. Dubbing, it's not bad, and his voice is very distinctive to me. This is the James Bond voice with that exact accent. Yes, Mr. Bond. This pretty much kind of cements that. I actually think he's a pretty good villain in that we see at least he's very clever. He has this giant plan, and he has these kind of plans within plans. That moment when everything goes wrong, and all of a sudden he throws off his coat and he has like a general's uniform and grabs a gun and just starts pretending to be on the U.S. side.
I really don't feel like he's a one-dimensional villain, and I think so far for the first two films the villains are pretty one-dimensional. They wanted to do one thing, they kind of knew how, but the plan was going to be circuitous. And in this one I feel like there's so much more going on with Ulrich that we actually don't get to explore, and that's not a bad thing. It's nice to see a character well-rounded enough that we don't have to see everything.
We get that sense of ego in that he loves an audience, which is the only way we can explain he does a briefing for a bunch of people that he kills 5 minutes later for no reason.
He's weirdly insecure. Like he needs the audience. He really needs approval, and he's super childish. Like, I feel like if they did it now, they'd probably like put more of a pin on it. But the fact that he has this very elaborate game room, basically with pool, but also several rocking horses.
This is a pretty genius way of writing the character, because this is all exposition.
Yeah.
And we as the audience need to know, but how do you do that without it just looking like exposition?
This is my bank. The gold depository at Fort Knox, gentlemen. In its vaults are $15 billion. The entire gold supply of the United States.
You have a character who loves to hear himself talk and to get feedback on all of his plans, all of his amazing plans.
I would have been fine with that. I just feel like it would have been good if he hadn't quite gotten everything yet and they had to make a phone call to approve the money transfer or something. If there was a reason why he's giving them the briefing that convinced them that they have to take one extra step before he kills them, it would have made a little more sense.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's just, again, yes, he's performing for the audience, but it is also very transparently for Bond to hear it under the model. Or even if he was giving a briefing to the pilots, something, anything, you know? It just seems a little silly to me to go through all of this just to kill them a second later.
That's the point where it gets too silly for you.
But there's also that most of the Bond villains have some kind of either a deformity or something about them that makes them less physically perfect than Bond. And this guy doesn't really have a specific deformity, but let's face it, Gert Frobe's not exactly the most handsome dude. So I feel like, again, they're trying to push that whole thing of Bond is physically perfect, and this guy, because he isn't, kind of gets by with his money.
The Bond movies are not subtle, and anything that's seen as a perversion or wrong in society is going to be shown. You're going to have external and internal flaws.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest we get to a really suave villain for Bond might be Christopher Lee, and even he has an extra nipple for some reason.
Exactly. It's a physical manifestation of that evil.
Yeah.
Now, the henchman guy in From Russia with Love's pretty cut.
Grant, yeah, I suppose that's true, but...
I mean, he's German, so, you know, that's you know... There's a problem right there.
For the Bond movies, they probably thought that was a flaw enough.
Probably enough. Although there's a whole generation for whom the whole thing of Bond being, you know, like the really good-looking guy in these is just never going to register because they'll only have ever seen them in HD, which does no favors to what the average middle-aged man's skin looked like. Like, you look at these and you're like, wow, Connery needs to stay the fuck out of the sun.
I did notice a few shots on the plane where you can really see the lace edge of his toupee there.
Yeah.
Really, really blatantly. For Bond girls, we have, of course, Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore, and Blackman, of course, is best known for playing a different spy, Kathy Gale on The Avengers, and she's actually the first main Bond girl to not be dubbed over. We actually are hearing her voice, which is kind of nice.
Do we know how old she was when she played this role? Because she seemed a little older than I recognize Bond girls to be, and I loved it.
I don't know what
she
her
felt
age
so
was.
much more age appropriate.
Yeah, she was born 25, so this is 64, so, wow, yeah.
Yeah, she was definitely a little older than our average
not
Bond
a spring
girl.
chicken for this
Yeah,
one.
which that's definitely a welcome change.
I loved it.
Still with us.
Yeah, she's
Still
still
with us at
around.
92.
She also felt like much more of a match for him, and that she can kind of give as good as she gets.
Yes.
The fact that Blackman actually knew judo, which they displayed a lot in the Avengers, they actually wrote it into the role here. So there's scenes where she's flinging James Bond around. It's like, yeah,
Right.
go.
I mean, we have our two main women in Bond's life, Moneypenny and Pussy Galore. And Moneypenny is using her position to flirt him into submission. Because, she's so aggressive in her flirting, it's way too much for Bond. And then we have Pussy Galore, who is completely the opposite. She has no interest in him whatsoever, but she's a physical threat.
What would it take for you to see things my way?
A lot more than you've got.
How do you know?
I don't want to know.
Isn't it customary to grant the condemned man his last request?
You've asked for this.
Besides the Avengers, she also appeared in A Night to Remember. She played Hera in Jason and the Argonauts. She was in Bridget Jones' Diary and in the Colin Baker Doctor Who episode Terror of the Vervoids. And she actually nearly earned her pilot's license for real, but her acting schedule interfered with her taking her qualifying solo flight.
Oh, I hope she eventually got to it.
I hope so, too. She is very cool, though. One of the other big signature characters is, of course, Harold Sakata as Oddjob. Again, solidifying the idea of the colorful henchman. And without any dialogue, he is great.
He is.
So much of his role is just this shitting grin at Bond. Like, really? That's all you got? Come
He's grunting mute.
Yeah, he's mute, but he still kind of goes, every once in a while, which doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me, but...
Like, it's a racist caricature, but, like, he's so cool it kind of transcends it.
The performance is so good that just the casual kind of joy he has in beating people up, and especially beating Bond up, you really get the sense there is nothing Bond can do to beat this guy.
I don't know if there are any actors who were like this before him, but I feel like this is just starting to show us the trope of having an ex-wrestler as your main physical threat, and so many movies have done it.
In the last Bond movie, Dave Bautista, I think, took a lot from Sakata in his role in that film.
Yeah, but not just the Bond films. And we have Ronda Rousey, who's UFC, I think, but not wrestling. But you get the idea of somebody who's known for their physical fighting prowess.
Tyler Mane in the X-Men movies.
Right.
Sabretooth, absolutely. He was actually Hawaiian-born, won a silver medal in the 1948 Olympics for weightlifting, and his physique brought him to the attention of producers. He also appeared in the William Shatner movie Impulse, The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood, and was on Gilligan's Island in the Rockford Files. Another wrestler, Milton Reed, really wanted the role and challenged Sakata to a wrestling match, with the winner getting the role, but the producers pretty much shot that down and just said, no, we're just going for him, and chose Sakata. And supposedly, because he was used to wrestling and just really going at it, he hit Connery a bit too hard during that scene where he knocks him out in the hotel. Connery looks like he flinches in real pain when he knocks him in the shoulder there. He also was supposedly burned filming the big electrocution scene where he grabs his hat because he just didn't let go of the rail until Guy Hamilton called cut, so he was dedicated. He also spoofed the character in a series of Vicks ads where a cough causes him to just destroy everything around him until he takes Vicks.
I remember those.
I saw a couple of them on YouTube. I'd never seen them before, but they're really cute.
No, he was super accomplished in wrestling. He had a lot of NWA titles, and he was like an international superstar.
If this had happened now, and one actor who's up for a role challenges another actor who's up for a role to a wrestling match, two of them are well-known wrestlers. Yeah. They would do that for the publicity.
Oh, it'd be huge.
Now. And I feel like that was almost a missed opportunity.
It blows my mind that Vince McMahon has never made that an angle, because that is a great angle.
Yeah,
to have like The Rock and some up-and-coming guy come back and fight each other for who's going to star in this movie that's probably already in... That would be a killer.
That'd be terrific, yeah. Especially if you can get that other actor to end up in a cameo somewhere in the movie anyway.
Because not just, the sales from the arena, the pay-per-view, but then you have invested people in the movie because they've seen who won. Now they want to see who won and how bad they can be in this new role.
We have Zack Snyder here at ringside. Zack, what do you think of who's going to be your star up here?
Pretty much, yeah.
Dude, that would kill. That would be a great... You could build a whole pay-per-view around that.
They can have that idea if I can have some money for it. I would like a little money, please.
Be one of the promoters. All right, I've got to bring it up also. The hat. Is that really the most practical weapon you can have, the hat thing? It just seems like, again, you'd have to have really heavy metal in there and have to be really sharp. It just seems like it would be too heavy. That would just give you headaches. I can't wear a normal hat without getting headaches. And again, it just doesn't feel like it would be very aerodynamic to me. How can he get that kind of accuracy?
Well, it looks cool, though.
It looks cool, but I mean, I keep thinking of Austin Powers when the guy throws a shoe, and I'm like, well, that's not really that far off, is it?
The henchman at this point is always the one extra step into fantasy.
Right.
It's like everything else is kind of useful, and then it's like, okay, we already know the guy's super strong. What's he gonna do? Okay, if you had never seen this movie before, and this is like 1964, and you're watching this first time, it's like, what the shit? What is that?
When I first saw it, I'm like, wait, it cuts through a stone statue and you can put that on your head and walk around with it? That just kind of boggled my mind. And he's so tough anyway, I almost feel like you don't need the hat. I don't know.
I think it's an element of surprise for him because people are expecting him to rush because he's a physical threat. And he's like, yeah, I'm a physical threat, but I can get you at a distance.
I'd see that hat coming to him and just start laughing. That's how it would get me.
That would be your undoing.
Just be like, really? What?
Especially since the hat blades don't work on people because they just kind of knock...
No. See, the way I write this, I have headcanoned this so that he knows how to use that hat with precision. So he's thrown that hat softer than he threw it at the statue.
I just wonder if it was going to be like the glaive, like he'd hit the hat band and all of a sudden blades come out before he throws it or something.
That would have been wonderful.
The flying guillotine.
Yeah, exactly. The other signature character for this movie is Jill Masterson, who only has a few scenes, but of course has the most iconic death scene in the entire series, played by Shirley Eaton, who appeared in some of the Carry On films, 3 Men in a Boat and 10 Little Indians. There was an urban legend she actually died when they were filming that scene because she did suffer from skin suffocation. Of course, that's complete bullshit. In fact, she actually recreated the scene many, many years later for a magazine spread. But can you imagine that's kind of your big claim to fame, is that you died and you're lying there as this gold corpse, and that's kind of it. Everyone remembers you for that. I feel bad for that character, though. I mean, she really got screwed over by Bond. He pulls her out of this assignment and just completely fails to protect her, same as with her sister.
Well, he doesn't care. Any of these dead women he leaves in his wake is just another excuse for him to go after the bad guy.
Well, this also starts another really unfortunate trend in the Bond movies where you usually have 2 Bond girls, one who's the main girl and one who gets fridged early on so Bond can make it personal, of course. And here that happens twice with both of these sisters.
Oh, yes.
It's just really, really unpleasant. And
Both
just
of
horrible.
which were really competent in what they do.
Yeah.
Jill was very, very good at what she did. She was basically spying on the other poker player, I think it was. Were they playing poker? Jin. But also being seen on Goldfinger's arm.
Yeah, see, Bond, this is how you spy. You actually sit there and do the job.
And her sister was pretty damn good at, getting revenge.
I think if Bond hadn't stood up and got in her way when she was taking that sniper shot, she might have made it.
Absolutely.
Tanya Mallet plays Tilly and remains one of the only Bond girls to display zero romantic or sexual interest in Bond. And I love the fact that, unlike with Pussy, where, of course, he finally turns her. I hate that.
It's so gross.
I like that it never comes to play in this one. And she does exactly what Bond says, like, here, I'll shoot and you run for cover. And it still gets her killed. Bond gets her killed again.
But this is also another instance where we're sort of acknowledging that she's a lesbian because it's codified. She has no interest in Bond. And then, of course, Bond emasculates her, takes away her gun, tells her what to do, and gets her killed.
And in the book, it was a lot more explicit because she actually survived longer and hooked up with Pussy galore. And in the big final battle, there's a scene where Bond is like, no, you have to come with me. And she's like, no, I'm going to go with Pussy. And doing that gets her killed. This symbolic thing of she rejects Bond, therefore she died.
But it should be noted that the first time we see Tilly, she is trying to drive past Bond. This is making him feel in his big car like not as important and big a man as he is. So when she has to pass him again, he destroys her car. There's really no reason for this, except he's a dick and he wanted to make her stop because he doesn't have discipline.
Well, by that point, I think he actually had clued on that she was the one doing the firing, if only because the fact she passed and then ended up behind him again somehow.
Yeah, but
and we also
I don't
get to
buy
see the car
it.
do that.
Yeah, we need to see the car do its tire cutters bit, but
which never comes back again. But
do they never use that again?
I think every gag with the car gets used exactly once.
I think it might have been in the Cannonball Run series then, because I remember it comes up again somewhere.
Oh, no, it gets borrowed a bunch. I mean, it's all a big Ben-Hur reference anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
The idea that he needs to cut down anyone who threatens his masculinity, it's...
Well, I will give him a little room on that one because up to that point, he actually thinks she's shooting at him. And there's a moment where they actually try to mislead the audience. When we hear the shot, you see Oddjob look up and kind of smile and nod to make it seem like, oh, she's somebody that they hired to shoot him.
But I almost feel as if, he mistakes because he thinks he's so important, he would be the only one someone would want to shoot. It's a red herring for us. we're supposed to think that she's with Goldfinger. But even before that, going back to the car, when he first sees her and she passes him, he has to tell himself, discipline, have discipline. Like, he's got to rein his sexuality in because this woman who has passed him should never have done that. He's got to just pour his masculinity all over her.
Well, that's because he's an asshole.
Right. But
he's the living embodiment of the Mike Pence rule, unfortunately.
Oh my God, it's true. He cannot control himself in a room with women unless there's someone to restrain him.
These movies are far too risque for Mike Pence, though. That's
I know.
Oh my God, I saw an ankle. Oh God.
He's just
a little too much wrist there.
He's just sitting there covering up the rabbit's eyes for half the movie.
We also have Felix Leiter coming back, this time played by Sick Linder, who takes over for Jack Lord. And, wow, Felix has not aged well. Apparently that CIA work takes a toll, because now he's about 30 years older, it looks like.
He has to work with Bond. That would age anybody.
I guess the guy who plays Goldfinger's gin opponent, Austin Willis, was actually cast, and they eventually switched roles, which is good, because that guy looks even older.
Yeah.
But again, there's this idea that the U.S. can't actually guard its own borders or take care of an arch criminal in their midst without James Bond. They have to have him there to help out. Man, the CIA looks terrible in these movies. Yeah. Bernard Lee's back as M, and I love the fact that M gets at least 2 scenes to really show off how much he doesn't like Bond. That scene where he tears him a new one over the fact he screwed up so much in Florida, it's nice. We need more of that.
Yeah.
You've hardly distinguished yourself, have you? You were supposed to observe Mr. Goldfinger, not borrow his girlfriend. Instead of that, Goldfinger goes off to Europe, and it's only by the grace of God, your friend Leiter, and my intervention with the British Embassy in Washington, that you're not in the custody of the Miami Beach Police.
Sir, I'm aware of my shortcomings.
We need some actual accountability. We've had a little bit, but he needs his credentials stripped away, and he needs to be censured many times over. This behavior would never fly. And I know it's James Bond, it's fantasy, spy films, but one of the big problems I have with the Bond films is that it teaches guys to act like James Bond. Because if you act like James Bond, you get the girl. And you get respect, and you get money, and you're smooth and suave. And all that would be fine if it wasn't basically indoctrination. It's not good for anybody. And he never has any kind of repercussion.
I'd like to see one where Bond gets sent on a mission, but he has a babysitter for the entire mission. Somebody just keep an eye on him and be like, nope, you're not doing that.
In these new ones, I think Moneypenny sort of filled that role a little bit.
She was a field agent for a little bit, which I thought was really good.
I loved that, but if she had to be his handler because he can't handle himself, I would love it.
Just one movie, and all of a sudden the flirtation's done by the end, because she's like, oh, fuck this guy. I don't want to be anywhere near him. I'm done. No, that's it. And, of course, Lois Maxwell's back as Moneypenny.
And Moneypenny's relationships, it stays the same as when we saw her for the first time. It's still effective. She's using her sexuality as a weapon to hold him at bay. Like, you get away, but I will flirt with you and make you afraid of me. I think Moneypenny is the only female that Bond is afraid of. I love it.
Desmond Llewellyn is back as Q, and we finally get impatient Q as well. Like, pay attention. No, don't touch that. That kind of Q. I love that relationship between him and Bond. It's so much fun.
What is the purpose of the duck hat? Like, how is that preferable to just going slightly deeper under the water? It's on the top of his head. He can't breathe any, but is there like a snorkel in the duck? Is that the idea?
Maybe, so he can see.
I think it's disguise.
Right. Well, I mean, I know it looks cool to see. It's like, no, it's 007. Okay.
So maybe it is snorkel, but how to disguise the snorkel.
Maybe it's to put the bad guys at their ease. They're like, we got to keep it. Oh, look at that duck. Oh, he's cute. Oh, that makes me happy. He walks away happy, and then Bond jumps out and sneaks up and kills him.
Yeah, but then he immediately tosses the decoy in the pond, and it's on its side, so they're going to know someone's down there.
Maybe they'll look at it and go, oh, no, dead duck. Oh, that makes me sad. And they're slightly dispirited, and they're easy to take out. I don't know. Maybe Q is just like, I'm going to fuck with 007. Tell me he has to wear this.
Wear this duck.
Bring me pictures of him with the duck on.
Last time you make a fool of me.
I was going to use that in my hunting trip, 007. For the rest of the cast, Margaret Nolan appears as Dink, his masseuse. She's also the gold-covered woman in the opening titles and all the advertising for the film. And Burt Kwok as Mr. Ling, who's best known as playing Kato in the Pink Panther movies, as well as popping up in Curse of the Fly, Rollerball, Empire of the Sun. He'd appear in 2 other Bond movies, in the non-canonical one, Casino Royale, and as a Spectre agent in You Only Live Twice. Great to see him, but again, I see him and I expect, it's Kato. Where's Clouseau going to pop up and they're going to fight through the scene and break everything? The movie was directed by Guy Hamilton, the first of his 4 Bond movies. He'd go on to do Diamonds Are Forever, which is easily one of the worst, Live and Let Die, also not great, and The Man with the Golden Gun, and would later direct Force 10 from Navarone and Rainbow Williams, The Adventure Begins. Directing-wise, the movie is really slow-paced at points, which surprises me. There's a lot of empty space in this movie. Some of the scenes that feel like they should be a little more exciting are a little slow. And it doesn't help that we have things like the whole scene of them killing Solo, which you could just cut out of the movie. You could have just had somebody shoot him and that scene's over. No, we're going to put him in a car, we're going to shoot him, we're going to crush the car for no goddamn reason. We're not going to take the gold out of the back of the car, we're going to have to separate that out later for some reason. It's such a long scene that just kind of goes nowhere.
It's over the time, though. I mean, this is half of the movie is travel to exotic locations, and, a third of it is Goldfinger showing off all of Goldfinger's stuff. He's like one of the great bad guys that just wants you to see all of his stuff.
Now, to be fair, in terms of the action, I think Hamilton actually does a little better than the previous director. Like the car chase, the first one where we're showing off all the gags, is really good. Yeah, that's a great scene. The coverage of the guys hanging out of the other cars, shooting at Bond and stuff, how all those gags come out. There's still that problem of vehicles just spontaneously blowing up for no reason, but which happens a couple times in this movie before they even hit the ground.
It happens even now, so I have a little leeway with that.
And some suspense scenes I actually think work really well. The scene where Bond is trying to get the keys to unlock the handcuffs that connect him to the bomb, and Oddjob is running down the stairs, I actually think is really well put together. The laser scene, of course, is a really good suspense scene. I also have to talk about the production design by Ken Adam. It's great to have him back in here because, oh my God, his designs are great. Of course, they weren't allowed in Fort Knox to see what it looks like, so Adam basically decided from Gold Vaults he had seen it should be more interesting and turned into this giant cavernous atrium, and it's such a great look.
Yeah. It's completely impractical for a place to put gold.
Oh, absolutely.
Stairs and... There's one elevator.
Yeah, it looks like the Bradbury building for some reason. Or Goldfinger's lodge where he has all this hidden stuff. I love the fact that he has this hidden model, this hidden map, all for this one robbery. Like he's designed this room just for this one heist and that's it. Is he going to have those removed for the next one if he does another one or what?
Well, I mean, giant video screens weren't a thing even in science fiction at that point, so how else was he going to show them all this stuff?
I just wonder, after this is over, does he just go back there and reflect on how great it was looking at his model and his map and like, yeah, I really pulled that off.
Well, he's got a whole nice little table there. You can play a nice game of Warhammer on that.
I honestly think that he was just going to save that room as a trophy, as a giant museum to this massive heist he's pulled off.
It's evidence.
I don't think he cares because I mean, once he's gotten to that point, his gold is 10 times as valuable as it was before. He can afford to buy off anyone he needs to.
If I had that room, there's a giant golden Godzilla going on that model, smashing Fort Knox, I'm telling you.
Oh, man, they should do this in like a Batman movie and with the Joker and just have that all be made of Lego.
That does bring up a point in the script that I think is really cool. The book actually has it be a heist, and there's this ridiculous action scene where they're trying to get the gold to trains, and the army shows up, and it's dumb. The fact that it's all kind of a ruse, that they're just going to irradiate the gold and make it useless, I think is a really good twist.
Yeah.
And when Bond puzzles that out is a really cool scene.
Go on, Mr. Bond. Mr. Ling, the red Chinese agent at the factory. He's a specialist in nuclear fission. His government's given you a bomb.
I prefer to call it an atomic device. It's small, but particularly dirty.
Well, if you explode it in Fort Knox, the entire gold supply of the United States will be radioactive for 57 years.
58, to be exact.
I apologize, Goldfinger. It's an inspired deal. They get what they want, economic chaos in the West, and the value of your gold increases many times.
I conservatively estimate 10 times.
Brilliant.
It actually gives Bond a little bit more credit that he's smart enough to put that together, and Goldfinger that he's smart enough to put it together in the first place.
Everything is a triple entendre in these, even really banal conversations about stuff going on. Just like, yeah, hi, I'm the good guy. Yeah, I'm the bad guy. Gonna kill you. Yeah, it's all very English.
Yeah, and that comes in with the big golf tournament, which is another thing there. That scene, it feels like it should be a lot more exciting than it is. I mean, we've seen how sports movies can make golf exciting, and this one is just kind of like, yeah, he hits it. Yeah, he hit it. Oh, yeah, he found his real ball. Okay, here we go.
Well, they're just showing off the golf course. It's just like, hey, look at this. We're in an exotic place. We've got a nice golf course. We're hanging out. It's it's wealth porn at this point.
It's Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah. There you go.
It is.
He owns the club.
He does own the club. And it's super tacky. I mean, look at all the fake Greek statues.
So have we just uncovered his true persona?
this really ugly, unpleasant man, tons of money, who's just feels entitled to all this stuff and women and such. Even to the ostentatious gold everywhere thing. I mean, it's so him. It feels like it could have been written about him. Even to the point where he has to cheat to win.
Yeah, the poor writing, doesn't seem to enjoy any, he really enjoys telling everyone how he did. Like, he can't keep his mouth. He has to admit what he's done, 4 different times to James Bond. He has to tell everyone, which, again, holy shit, the other guy can't not tell the news what he did.
Yeah.
So, Trump absolutely loves Bond movies. He must. I'm sure he fast forwards, but that must be a thing.
You think if we went to Mar-a-Lago, there'd be a bunch of statues that have no heads all around the outside?
Auric Trump finger.
Ooh, it just sounds gross.
I know.
The thing is, that the great disappointment in the current president's life is finding out that you can't actually hire superhuman bodyguard guys, because he's tried.
Probably.
The Secret Service does not actually want to die for you.
We're going to just kind of stand over here, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm not taking this bullet.
I wonder what it would be like if Goldfinger had a Twitter. Operation Grand Slam coming. Can't you tell you about it?
Oh, man, none of these guys would be able to do anything in the age of social media. Hell, just the fact that if James Bond had a cell phone, the movie would be over in 5 minutes. Just, hold on, you're just going to text Felix. Yeah, he's right here. Just come pick him up. Guys, just do it. That's why these movies should all be period movies. I maintain that. When I can't believe they're going to make Daniel Craig do another one of these. I feel so bad for him because he so doesn't want... if Ben Affleck was not, the saddest guy in a big franchise movie right now, Daniel Craig would still have that trophy because he seems miserable.
I don't know. I think a lot of that came from the fact that they were talking about another Bond movie right after he finished the last one, which was physically difficult. He had hurt himself. It was exhausted. He probably just didn't want to think about Bond for a while.
Also, the movie was bad.
The movie did turn out to be bad, unfortunately. But.
No one who's run a marathon wants to talk about running a marathon right when they've crossed the finish line.
Exactly, and I'm sure he has other things he wants to do in the interim, so I knew eventually he was going to come back to do another one, but I hope it is better. I hope it doesn't have to take off too much from the last one, because... You're
not eager to find out what else, this version of Blofeld is up to?
No, the only thing I'm eager about that he has suggested is that he wants to bring back Monica Bellucci for an actual part this time.
Oh, so they can apologize for that whole stretch of the last movie?
Yeah, pretty much. I think he really wanted her as the main Bond girl in the last film, and they kind of vetoed that, but I'd love for her to have a bigger part.
I would too, but I would also like James Bond movie to go an entire movie without raping someone.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So let's, little steps.
Yeah.
Don't rape.
Yeah. Bare minimum.
Couple other random notes. The harp music when Bond finds Jill's gold-painted body was actually sampled for the beginning of the song Six Underground by the Sneaker Pimps. And now I can't hear that song without remembering that scene or see that scene where I think of that song. There's that great moment when they're going into Goldfinger's base and the gatekeeper comes out and there's this old woman who suddenly pulls out a machine gun and shoots at Bond.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Alfred Hitchcock saw an early screening of this and absolutely loved that and confessed to Guy Hamilton that he wished he had thought of it for one of his movies. And it does have that kind of dark humor that would fit in with a Hitchcock film.
I love the idea of Hitchcock watching a Bond movie.
Supposedly, he was Smokey and the Bandit right before he died and thought it was terrific, so...
Oh, that's amazing.
He'd just sit in his little bungalow in the Universal lot and just watch all these movies.
That's fantastic.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to ask. Did you notice in the Fort Knox scene, after the bomb is defused, Bond says 3 more ticks and Goldfinger
yes,
the 1?
And it would have been 7. That bothered me so much.
Well, it was going to be 3 originally. That was going to be the count. And in editing, they decided, well, he's Bond, we should make it 7. But they never bothered to fix the line.
Not good.
It's worth the loss. It's a good visual pun.
It's a good visual pun, but at least overdubbed, 7 more ticks probably wouldn't have fit, but still.
So something that we haven't touched on is the credit sequence, the beginning credit sequence. Right before all of that, we've got the first scene of the film. We have the girl who dies, and
I don't know if she died. I think he just knocked her out.
Okay, she did. She was knocked out, but we have Bond using a woman as an object. He uses her eye as a mirror when he sees that there's somebody behind him. He uses her as a human shield. And then we go right into our Bond song and our credits where women are painted gold and used as projection screens. So the movie is set up in the first 5 minutes. By the way, women are to be used. They are objects. Enjoy them.
To be fair, the woman in the opening sequence, I took her to be an enemy agent, so he just figures he's...
I don't think it's a good excuse to use a woman as an object.
Well, I mean, if
you're a bad guy, I get to use you.
If you're about to be killed and someone's sneaking up on you and you have somebody, you kind of use that person in battle. I mean, you see that in any martial arts movie where they take a bad guy and use him as a weapon against somebody else.
I'm not convinced he knew conclusively that she was a bad guy.
I couldn't tell if we're supposed to see that he sees her looking at the guy and then looking back at him. That's the vibe I got, that he noticed that and then saw the reflection in her eye. Because there's a long moment where she looks over at the guy coming behind him and then looks back at him.
I'm comfortable looking at it again because I'm not entirely sure, but I still feel like this is just not good. It's setting up what's going to happen to women in the rest of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying there's big problems with that down the road. Yeah, the whole projecting the credits on women thing, it seemed to work for the last movie, so I guess they decided to do it again. I still find it funny that I'm watching the opening credits and all I can think is, hey, wait, that's From Russia with Love. That's the wrong movie. Hey, that's Dr. No. That's the wrong movie, too. Of course, the film fueled a whole boom in spy movies, including Our Man Flint, the Matt Helm movies, and spoof movies such as the Beatles film Help and Casino Royale. And, of course, without this, we wouldn't have had the third Austin Powers movie, Goldmember. Take that as you will.
We really didn't need Goldmember.
We really didn't.
Yeah, there didn't need to be more than one Austin Powers movie.
I'm struck by how many little touches of this movie ended up in other films, like removing the wetsuit to reveal the tuxedo, which pops up in True Lies.
Yeah.
That scene where he reveals his fake heel, where he puts the bug in there. I feel like that's directly quoted in Train Spotting when Sick Boy is showing off that he has all of his heroin gear stuck in the heel of his shoe.
Well, it's also like, 8 or 9 different gags for all of Get Smart.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, what's everybody's favorite scene?
Every single time a woman rejected Bond. Every time.
There's a hotel nearby.
Oh, jump in, I'll run you down.
That won't be necessary.
Well, I hate to leave you here alone.
I can take care of myself.
This should be a memorable flight.
You can turn off the charm. I'm immune. Skip it. I'm not interested.
Bob?
Oh, the chase scene is the best action in here. That's probably the highlight of the movie. That and the last fight with Oddjob are really great. But I am a sucker for showing off the plan in the room because it's so big. I mean, the production design is gorgeous in the room. The movie wants you to watch that scene for the exact same reason Goldfinger wants you to watch the scene. They're like, look how much we spent on this giant moving, transforming set with all this stuff flipping over and all the mob guys falling all up. The stuff, the floor opens up. I mean, you're watching that, you're like, holy, like that's not CGI. They spent every penny of that is up on screen to show you, look what we built. Look at this. This is a place you can go, and we did this. How about that?
What's with that trick pool table? Turn those lights back on. What are you trying to pull, Goldfinger?
There is no cause for alarm, gentlemen. Man has climbed Mount Everest, gone to the bottom of the ocean. He has fired rockets to the moon, split the atom, achieved miracles in every field of human endeavor, except crime.
For me, it might have to be Bond's near execution by laser.
Yeah.
It's a stupid scene. I cannot deny it.
Gold flaking.
And the fact that almost called him Goldmember, Goldfinger's not going to stick around to watch Bond die. He's just going to, I'll assume he's going to die. Here, let's go in this other room.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last. The purpose of our 2 previous encounters is now very clear to me. I do not intend to be distracted by another. Good night, Mr. Bond.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. There is nothing you can talk to me about that I don't already know.
But it's a scene where Bond is completely helpless and literally has to talk his way out of it. And I kind of like that he doesn't have a gadget to get himself out of this. He just has to think his way out of it. And yes, it's a stretch that just saying, Grand Slam, let me out, would work. But the intercutting of laser going up his crotch, Connery sweating, and Gert Frobe just sitting there thinking like, talking with the other guy, Cut back to Bond like, come on. I really love the way that's directed. And again, it's a scene that we've seen in so many other movies since then. All right, what are your recommendations? If you don't like this one or do like this one, what do you think somebody would like instead?
If you like this one, just watch Mission Impossible. It's basically the same thing, except I think it's a little more fun.
Have you seen the OSS movies?
No, I keep meaning to. I haven't gotten to see them yet.
The 2 things that, what's his name from The Artist?
Yeah.
That's his actual name now. What's his name from the artist?
I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember his name.
Yeah, well, no one can. Nobody cares. That was the fastest fading Oscar movie ever. But no,
like
but
that movie.
But they're actually very funny. I'm sorry I can't remember your name. Very talented French guy who is now the butt of that joke forever and ever.
Oh, he was in Wolf of Wall Street too, so at least he had a second.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. What the fuck is his name? I almost feel legit dickish because I tried to remember his name. Oh.
You want me to check it?
No, it's fine. I know. Let it stand. Let everyone remember that the artist is that forgetable.
I like the artist.
I know you like the artist, but you can't remember his name either.
I can't remember his
He's
name.
the star
but
of
I
the
like
movie.
The artist.
But those are very funny.
I kept thinking going to heist movies, and my first thought was the original Italian Job with Michael Caine, which, again, you see this great intricate plan for a gold heist being pulled off and things going wrong, and that movie does have the greatest literal cliffhanger ever. And the other one was Heist, the David Mamet one with Gene Hackman and Danny DeVito, which I feel like everyone's forgotten about.
I almost went for Heist.
It's such a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's so clever. All right, anything else to say about Goldfinger?
Nope.
I still like it.
I still like it, but it doesn't play as exciting as I remember.
I still hate it.
Yeah, at this point, Bond now is like Alan Quaterman was like, in the mid 80s, where it's like, yeah, this doesn't work anymore. This has receded far enough back into time. It's like, wow, everything about this is problematic.
It's fascinating to watch as the series goes on. It starts kind of jumping onto other genres to try and make itself relevant. Blaxploitation movie, kung fu movie, space movie, and then other movies start imitating it instead. All right, that ends our discussion, but not the conversation. If you'd like to have your say about Goldfinger or feel that we missed something, check out the comments section for this episode on cinemaspection.com and start talking. Email your comments, complaints, questions, and suggestions to cinemaspection@gmail.com. You can also like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Our show is available on iTunes and Stitcher, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to us. If you have a moment to spare, please leave us a review there. We appreciate any feedback you can offer. We'll be back to discuss another movie next time. Until then, thanks for listening, and remember to keep watching closely. There's more to a movie than what's on the screen. Goldfinger is planning a mysterious scheme known as Operation Grand Slam. Bond comes up against the... What?
Every time you say Operation Grand Slam, I keep thinking that it's going to be like the Denny's breakfast. Like the Grand Slam.
My Grand Slam will include bacon and eggs and hash browns, Mr.
I would like
Bond.
the eggs scrambled. They are gold like my fingers.
Oh, man.